So next up, podcast listeners, we have Go Woke or Go Broke. And the Go Woke or Go Broke series here is Michelob Ultra's Gender Equity in Sports. That's right, the beer, Michelob Ultra, has gender equity in sports, and they have a commercial about it. It's not enough for them to talk about it and to try to gain traction on Twitter so that more people will buy and drink Michelob Ultra. Oh no, this is like their company policy. And that's why it's kind of go woke or go broke. It's like, oh, you got to come on the Michelob Ultra train because we're just really cool. And, so what have they done? What has Michelob Ultra done? Well, they've decided to bring in some women athletes, but also CC Telfer, who, of course, is a transgender who did not qualify for the U.S. Olympics in Japan. And CC Telfer is a runner. And CC Telfer is a biological man that is trying to, of course, and has been participating in women's sports. So in CNN Sports, CNN says transgender runner CC Telfer is ruled ineligible to compete in U.S. Olympics. And this was back in June, of course, of this year. And the reason CC Telfer wasn't allowed to participate, my understanding is at least, is because of the fact that CC Telfer had very high levels of not estrogen, but testosterone, which means that CC Telfer is a dude. Okay. So transgender runner CC Telfer felt seen by athletes after Olympic trials ineligibility. This is in People magazine. CC Telfer knows the importance of feeling represented in sports. The transgender track star 26, who appears in Michelob Ultra's new campaign for gender equity in sports, tells people she felt seen by her fellow competitors after she was ruled ineligible to compete at the U.S. Olympic track and field trials in June. Of course, they don't say why, They didn't say, well, because CC Telfer is a guy. A lot of my competitors that ran at the trials were reaching out to me, said CC, making sure that I'm safe and everything's going well, she recalls. They were just making sure that I'm doing all right. They were like, when are we going to compete? When are we going to run together? Because they want to race. They want to compete against the best. Isn't that funny? They want to compete against the best. The women want to compete against the best guy. That's apparently a woman. So amid various pieces of legislation that have targeted transgender women in sports, no, it has not targeted them. It has tried to make and maintain women's sports whole. CC experienced that form of athletic policing firsthand. Again, this is in People magazine, folks. But Telfer finds it helpful that fans and other athletes have shown their support while bringing awareness to the issue. It was great to see that. I felt like I mattered. I felt like I was seen by my competitors, adds Telfer, who previously became the first openly transgender woman to win an NCAA title in 2019. Mom and Dad, are you really proud of that? That your son is the first openly transgender woman to win an NCAA title? I mean, I'm sorry. I would not be proud of that. Now, Telfer is helping others feel seen through Michelob Ultra's Save It, See It campaign. Well, that sounds somewhat like an oxymoron, right? Michelob Ultra, save it, see it. I think it's too late to save it. It's already gone. To encourage fans to hit save on women's sports, highlights on social media, that little save button when you have a story, which will help boost visibility for female athletes. Last Thursday on Women's Equality Day, Michelob Ultra kicked off its campaign, which committed $100 million over the next 5 years, while striving to represent men's and women's sports equally through their own brand. What a bunch of nonsense. Because they're saying equity, equality. I mean, we all know what this is about. And of course, on this article, I've asked our producer, Christopher Hopkins, to show the picture of Cece in not sure what this outfit is, and posing on the track. So, I mean, that's, you got to see it to believe it kind of thing. So Michelob Ultra, their tagline, save it, see it, or see it, save it, something like that. Well, they have an ad. They put together an ad for this, which is why it's so perfect for our Go Woke or Go Broke series. And so we have a clip of that ad. It's not the whole ad. It's about 30 seconds of it. And here it is.
You don't have to like how I look.
You don't have to like how I got here.
You don't have to like how I train.
And you definitely don't have to like how I play.
But when you save women's sports,
You support women's sports.
When you hit save,
Save.
they see us. Which means we get more support.
more opportunities.
And one step closer to an equal future.
So, yeah, so that last person speaking was Cece. So I'm not really sure it should be see it, save it. I think it's more like he's got toe. I mean, I think that should be the tagline for the actual video. But I digress. And this is just ridiculous, this Go Woke or Go Broke, because of the fact that we have an individual who didn't qualify for the U.S. Olympics because the Olympic Committee said, you are a dude and you can't compete in women's track and women's sports. And so Michelob Ultra then picks up this individual as a hero and says, well, it's not your fault you're a guy. You're really, it's really not your fault you couldn't participate. So therefore, we're going to talk about equity. Well, wait a minute. Isn't the whole idea of sports merit? I mean, isn't the whole idea that the person in a women's sport such as swimming who is first won first place because of merit, and then some guy who jumps in the pool, okay, and decides he's going to compete against them and wins, that's not merit. That's cheating. And so Michelob Ultra is supporting cheating. They're not supporting equality of opportunity. They're supporting cheating. So in Michelob Ultra's own commercial, they're equating cheating with equity, which sounds about right, by the way, because equity is not about merit. And so when you don't have merit, what do you have in exchange? You have cheating. So CNN says, they have a straight news piece that says there's no consensus for criteria for assigning sex at birth. I'm sorry. I'm not going to even read that because you can only imagine what CNN would say. I'm sorry. Joy Reid's probably quoted as well. So, and then also in the Daily Caller, we're on a mission. Advocacy groups campaign against trans surgeries for minors. And that article just came out today. And that's definitely worth reading because you can imagine that when some minors see commercials such as the Michelob Ultra commercial, when some minors see that, they might themselves become confused and they might themselves go try to seek help. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with seeking help. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they might go try to seek help and they might be influenced by the commercial, and they might even be influenced by that help. Case in point, in the state of Maryland, a place where I am a member of the House of Delegates, and I rarely talk about this, but in the state of Maryland, a bill passed this year that allows children as young as 12 years old, without parental consent, you heard that correctly, without parental consent, to seek health advice from such people meaning transgender advocates, individual health advocates who are talking to the child about how they're really not a boy, they're really a girl, and probably giving them advice and other kinds of encouragement to take puberty blockers so they destroy themselves during puberty. And look, this bill passed in the Maryland General Assembly, and it basically says, parents, you're cut out of this decision-making process. In fact, you're not even going to know that your child is getting this advice in school or getting this advice from a private practitioner. We're not even going to tell you that this is happening because you don't have a right to know because the kid really isn't yours. And so then we see this Michelob Ultra commercial, the He's Got Toe commercial, and that commercial is influencing these young children and confusing them. And that's what happens. It's very normal for children to be confused when they're going through puberty. And this is just ridiculous. I'm sorry. I don't think it doesn't belong in the corporate world because Michelob Ultra is on the wrong side of this issue because they've decided to recruit someone who didn't even qualify because of the fact that they're simply not a woman.